I just think that was time for a change in life.
David Ruffin was an undeniable top 40 radio staple of the 60s, shaping the sound of a generation with his powerful voice. As the lead singer of The Temptations, he captivated audiences with his electrifying performances, influencing a range of artists from Rod Stewart to Marvin Gaye, as well as countless R&B singers. When he left The Temptations to pursue a solo career, many believed he was destined to become one of music's biggest stars. Unfortunately, that didn't quite pan out. David Ruffin's life was tragically cut short at the age of 50 due to the effects of substance abuse in Detroit. Yet recent rumors suggest there might be undisclosed details about his life. Behind the scenes, Ruffin's story was filled with drama, mystery, and heartache. Stay tuned as we uncover what you may not know about the life and death of David Ruffin. The reason behind David Ruffin leaving The Temptations and his tragic end. After My Girl was released in November 1964, it quickly became The Temptations' first #1 single in 1965. This iconic track not only established itself as the group's signature song, but also propelled David Ruffin into the spotlight as the lead singer and frontman. However, by 1967, Ruffin began to face significant challenges. His growing cocaine addiction led to missed rehearsals and performances, raising concerns within the group. Despite his personal struggles, Ruffin's desire to maintain his prominence within The Temptations became evident. He and his then-girlfriend, Tammy Terrell, even opted for a custom limousine decorated with an image of Ruffin's distinctive black-rimmed glasses on the door. Inspired by the Supremes' rebranding as Diana Ross and the Supremes, Ruffin sought a similar central role within The Temptations. He proposed renaming the group to David Ruffin and the Temptations, aiming to secure a more dominant position akin to Diana Ross's in her group. This suggestion led to a clash with group leader Otis Williams, escalating tensions within the band. David Ruffin's involvement with The Temptations extended beyond personal ambitions and into the group's financial affairs. He pushed for a detailed accounting of their finances, a move that heightened tensions with Motown founder Berry Gordy. The situation reached a critical point in June 1968 when Ruffin chose to attend a performance by his new girlfriend, Barbara Gayle Martin, over a scheduled Temptations concert in Cleveland, Ohio. This decision led the group to sever ties with Ruffin on June 27th. Dennis Edwards, a former member of the Contours and a familiar face to Ruffin and the group, stepped in to fill his role. Ruffin himself encouraged Edwards to take his place. Despite the official split, Ruffin began showing up unannounced at Temptations concerts during Edwards' initial performances. When the group performed classic Ruffin-era hits like My Girl or Ain't Too Proud to Beg, Ruffin would unexpectedly walk onto the stage, take the microphone from Edwards, and commandeer the performance. His surprise appearances both embarrassed the group and thrilled fans. Although there were discussions about giving Ruffin a second chance due to his persistent pleas and the audience's enthusiastic response, The Temptations ultimately decided to stick with Edwards after Ruffin missed a scheduled return show in Geesburg, Maryland. In 1967, David Ruffin made his first serious attempt to tackle his drug addiction issues by seeking treatment. Despite this effort, his struggles continued to impact his life and career. By 1978, Ruffin found himself entangled in legal troubles during a birthday celebration in Memphis. He was arrested for disorderly conduct after allegedly refusing to leave the premises when asked. Reports surfaced that Ruffin had made threats against police officers and their families during his transport to jail, though he denied these allegations. Ultimately, he was released on his own recognizance. Ruffin's legal and financial issues did not end there. In 1982, he faced severe consequences related to unpaid taxes. He was charged $5,000 and sentenced to 6 months in a low-security prison in Terre Haute, Indiana, for failing to pay over $310,000 in taxes from the years 1975 to 1977. Ruffin served 4 months before being granted early release for good behavior. On May 19, 1986, Ruffin entered a plea of no contest to a charge of receiving and concealing stolen property, specifically a Colt .32 caliber handgun valued at less than $100. The additional charges of assault and battery, along with receiving stolen property valued at over $100, were dropped. Ruffin was fined $50 and required to pay $100 in court costs. In July 1987, David Ruffin's legal troubles continued when he was arrested during a raid in Detroit. The charges included possession of cocaine with intent to distribute less than 20 grams. Although Ruffin was acquitted of the possession charge, he was found guilty of drug use. As a result, he was sentenced to 2 years probation and 50 days of community service. However, his struggles with the law persisted. By 1989, repeated violations of his probation led to a court order for drug rehabilitation. Ruffin completed a 28-day treatment program at the Ariba Kazriel Institute in New York, marking a brief but successful attempt to address his addiction. Despite these challenges, Ruffin had recently experienced a professional resurgence, having just finished a successful month-long tour of England with fellow musicians Eddie Kendricks and Dennis Edwards. Tragically, his life was cut short on June 1, 1991, when he died from an accidental overdose of crack cocaine. The fatal incident occurred after Ruffin reportedly collapsed at a crack house in West Philadelphia while accompanied by his friend Donald Brown. Brown rushed Ruffin to the hospital of the University of Pennsylvania, but despite nearly an hour of emergency treatment efforts, Ruffin was pronounced dead at 3:55 a.m. The official cause of death was determined to be an adverse reaction to drugs. According to reports from the Associated Press, in the hours leading up to David Ruffin's death, he and a man named William Nowell were said to have shared 10 vials of crack cocaine at Nowell's residence in West Philadelphia. Although the authorities officially ruled his death as accidental, attributing it to an adverse reaction to drugs, there were lingering suspicions of foul play among Ruffin's family and friends. Their concerns were fueled by the mysterious disappearance of a money belt containing $40,000, which was missing from Ruffin's person after his death. Ruffin's then-girlfriend, Diane Showers, revealed that she was not entirely surprised by the tragic turn of events. She commented, "When David had a lot of money, he would be able to do things that he wanted to do," hinting at the possible link between Ruffin's financial status and his choices, which might have contributed to his untimely demise. In the television miniseries The Temptations, David Ruffin's death is depicted in a dramatic and distressing manner, showing his beaten body being discarded in the street in front of a hospital where he later dies. The miniseries further suggests that Ruffin's body remained unclaimed in the morgue for a week following his death. This portrayal led Ruffin's estate to file a defamation lawsuit against NBC and other key parties involved in the production, alleging that the series misrepresented the circumstances of his death. According to the plaintiffs, the reality was quite different. Ruffin was transported to the hospital by limousine and was escorted to the waiting area by his driver, who had informed the medical staff of Ruffin's identity. Additionally, Ruffin's children clarified that his body was claimed by a family member within a few days of his passing. Despite these claims, the lawsuit was ultimately unsuccessful, and the ruling against Ruffin's estate was upheld on appeal. David Ruffin's funeral service was held at New Bethel Baptist Church in Detroit, where his fellow Temptations performed a heartfelt rendition of "My Girl." The ceremony was further honored by the presence of esteemed artists Stevie Wonder and Aretha Franklin, who also paid tribute with their performances. Although Michael Jackson generously offered to cover the funeral expenses, he did not attend the service. The event was marked by floral tributes from notable figures, including Rod Stewart, Daryl Hall and John Oates, Diana Ross, the Spinners, and Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, each showing their respect and admiration for Ruffin. David Ruffin was laid to rest in Section 3 at Woodlawn Cemetery in Detroit. Despite the tragic circumstances surrounding his death, it's crucial to celebrate the multifaceted life of David Ruffin. His legacy extends beyond the struggles with addiction, highlighting his significant contributions to music and the profound impact he had on those around him. To truly appreciate the legendary status of David Ruffin and understand the man behind the stage, let's take a moment to explore the early events that shaped him and influenced the choices he made throughout his life. Early life, childhood, and adolescence. David Eli Ruffin was born on January 18, 1941, in the rural community of Wynot, Mississippi, located about 15 miles southeast of Meridian. He was the third child of Elias Eli Ruffin, a Baptist minister, and his wife, Ophelia Ruffin. Ruffin's siblings included Quincy B. Ruffin, Rita Mae Ruffin, and Jimmy Lee Ruffin. He also had a sister named Rosine, who tragically passed away in infancy. Ruffin's parents were both Mississippians. His father, Eli, worked as a truck driver for various lumber mills, while his mother, Ophelia, managed the household. Eli's own parents had migrated from Alabama to Mississippi due to the difficult post-Civil War conditions. Before settling in Alabama, Ruffin's great-grandparents, John and Clara Ruffin, had moved from Bertie County, North Carolina. John Ruffin was a Civil War veteran who served with the 14th United States Colored Heavy Artillery Regiment. Eli Ruffin was known for his strict and sometimes harsh discipline. Tragically, Ophelia died from complications related to childbirth just 10 months after David's birth. Eli remarried in 1942, taking as his second wife Earline, a schoolteacher. As a young child, Ruffin, along with his siblings Quincy, Jimmy, and Rita Mae, traveled with their father and stepmother as a family gospel group. They performed alongside prominent acts such as Mahalia Jackson and the Five Blind Boys of Mississippi. Ruffin began singing at Mount Salem Methodist Church and participated in talent shows, showcasing his musical talent wherever he could. In 1955, at the age of 14, Ruffin left home under the care of a minister, Eddie Bush, and moved to Memphis, Tennessee, with the intention of pursuing a career in ministry. At the age of 15, David Ruffin ventured to Hot Springs, Arkansas. With jazz musician Phineas Newborn Sr. in Hot Springs, they performed at the 50 Grand Ballroom and Casino. During this period, Ruffin, who was performing under the stage name Little David Bush, participated in local talent shows and worked with horses at a jockey club. He also joined the Dixie Nightingales, a gospel group, and briefly sang with the Soul Stirrers following Johnny Taylor's departure. Inspired by his idols, such as Sam Cooke and Jackie Wilson, who had transitioned from gospel to secular music, Ruffin began to explore a similar path. At the age of 16, he was taken to Detroit, Michigan, by Eddie Bush and his wife, Dorothy Helen. In Detroit, Ruffin's brother Jimmy was already working at the Ford Motor Company while simultaneously pursuing a career in music. Musical beginnings. After relocating to Detroit with the Bushes, David Ruffin recorded his first released single with Vega Records in 1958. The record featured the songs You and I and Believe Me, and was released under the name Little David Bush, using the last name of his guardian. Ruffin later reflected on his early recordings, noting that they were influenced by the smoother pop and R&B sounds of the era. In 1957, Ruffin crossed paths with Berry Gordy Jr., who was then a songwriter with dreams of launching his own label. Ruffin took up residence with Gordy's father, a contractor, and assisted in constructing the building that would become Hitsville, USA, the headquarters for Gordy's Tamla Records, which would later be known as Motown Records. Ruffin's brother, Jimmy Ruffin, would later be signed to Tamla's Miracle Records label as an artist. During this time, Ruffin also worked alongside Marvin Gaye as an apprentice at Anna Records, a label distributed by Chess and run by Gordy's sister Gwen Gordy Fuqua and her songwriting partner, Billy Davis. Gordy Fuqua, reflecting on Ruffin in a 1988 Detroit Free Press interview, praised him for his professionalism and dedication, noting that he was very much a gentleman and that he rehearsed with a level of commitment akin to performing live. Ruffin himself recalled that he and Gaye would sometimes help pack records for Anna Records. David Ruffin made his mark in music as both a vocalist and drummer with the Voice Masters, a doo-wop group. The Voice Masters, which included future Motown producer Lamont Dozier, as well as Ty Hunter, C.P. Spencer, Hank Dixon, and Walter Gaines, founder of both the Voice Masters and the Originals, recorded the song I'm in Love, BW One of These Days in 1961. At one point, the group also featured Melvin Franklin, who would later become a member of the Temptations, a group David would claim as family. Although Ruffin did sign with Anna Records as a solo artist, his early solo efforts did not achieve significant success. During this period, Ruffin continued to develop his musical career and eventually encountered a local group called the Temptations. Ruffin's older brother Jimmy was on tour with the Temptations as part of the Motortown Revue and informed David that the group was in need of a tenor. Eager to join, Ruffin approached Otis Williams, a key figure in the Temptations, who also lived in Detroit. In January 1964, Ruffin officially joined the Temptations, replacing founding member Elbridge Al Bryant, who had been fired from the group. Ruffin's first recording session with the Temptations took place on January 9, 1964. Although both Ruffin and his brother auditioned for the group, it was David who was chosen after delivering a standout performance at the label's New Year's Eve party in 1963, with the Temptations. After joining the Temptations, the bespectacled David Ruffin initially took on background vocals, while the lead singer role was mostly shared between Eddie Kendricks and Paul Williams. Although Ruffin did contribute a few lead parts both on stage and in the studio during his first year with the group, these early leads were not released immediately, as they were deemed not strong enough to showcase his vocal prowess. However, Smokey Robinson, who was producing and co-writing much of the Temptations material at the time, saw great potential in Ruffin. Robinson recognized Ruffin as a sleeping giant with a unique voice that was both mellow and gruff. Believing that a well-crafted song could highlight Ruffin's vocal strengths, Robinson aimed to write the perfect track for him. This effort resulted in the creation of My Girl, a song designed to be both powerful and melodious. Recorded in November 1964 and released the following month, My Girl quickly became the Temptations' first #1 single in 1965. It not only became the group's signature song, but also catapulted Ruffin to the forefront as their lead singer and frontman. Following the success of My Girl, Ruffin led a series of highly successful singles, including It's Growing, Since I Lost My Baby, Ain't Too Proud to Beg, Beauty Is, Only Skin Deep, I Know, I'm Losing You, All I Need, Loneliness Made Me Realize, It's You That I Need, I Wish It Would Rain, and I Could Never Love Another After Loving You. He also shared lead vocals with Eddie Kendricks on the 1967 hit single You're My Everything. Ruffin's commanding presence, dramatic performances, and towering 6 feet 3 inches frame endeared him to audiences and fans alike. According to Otis Williams, Ruffin, affectionately nicknamed Ruff by the group, was not only a natural comedian, but also a dedicated and hard-working singer. One of David Ruffin's most notable contributions to the Temptations was his creation of the group's signature four-headed microphone stand. This innovative setup allowed all members to sing and perform their intricate dance routines without having to crowd around a single microphone, with the lead singer using a separate mic. However, by 1967, Ruffin's growing issues became a significant problem for the group. His battle with cocaine addiction began to interfere with his commitments, leading to missed rehearsals and performances. As previously mentioned, the mounting struggles and internal conflicts led the Temptations to make a decisive move on June 27th. The group, having reached their limit with David Ruffin's disruptive behavior and missed performances, decided to terminate his association with the band. They chose to replace him with Dennis Edwards, a former member of the Contours who was both a friend of Ruffin and well acquainted with the group. Despite his dismissal, Ruffin continued to disrupt the group's performances. During Edwards' early dates with the Temptations, Ruffin began appearing unannounced at their concerts. Whenever the group performed a song from the Ruffin era, like My Girl or Ain't Too Proud to Beg, Ruffin would storm the stage, snatch the microphone from Edwards, and commandeer the spotlight. His unexpected appearances both embarrassed the group and delighted the audience. Edwards later revealed that the attention Ruffin received and his pleas for a return led the other members of the Temptations to consider giving Ruffin another chance. However, when Ruffin showed up late for a scheduled return show in Gaithersburg, Maryland, the group decided to stick with Edwards and ruled out rehiring Ruffin. Otis Williams, in particular, has maintained that Ruffin's firing was intended to be permanent and that there was never serious consideration given to bringing him back. In October 1968, Ruffin filed a lawsuit against Motown Records, seeking to be released from his contract and demanding a detailed accounting of his finances. Motown countersued to prevent him from leaving the label. The legal dispute was eventually settled, with Ruffin being required to remain with Motown to fulfill the terms of his initial contract. His solo contract with Motown, which was separate from the group's contract, was a source of tension and infighting within the Temptations. Solo years. David Ruffin's solo career began with a significant hit. His first solo single was My Whole World Ended the Moment You Left Me, a track originally intended for the Temptations. Released in 1969 as part of an album of the same name, the single achieved notable success, reaching the U.S. pop and R&B top 10. This was followed by the 1969 album Feelin' Good. Although a third album titled David was recorded between 1970 and 1971, it was shelved by Motown and remained unreleased until 2004. In 1970, Ruffin collaborated with his brother Jimmy on the album I Am My Brother's Keeper. The album produced minor hits, including When My Love Hand Comes Tumbling Down and Your Love Was Worth Waiting For. Despite these efforts, Ruffin's next official solo release for Motown did not come until 1973 with the album David Ruffin. Although Ruffin's solo career initially showed promise, it began to falter, partly due to his ongoing struggles with cocaine addiction and diminished support from Motown. His final top 10 hit was Walk Away from Love, released in 1975 and produced by Van McCoy. This single reached number 9 on the U.S. pop charts and made an impact in the U.K., where it peaked at number 10 in early 1976. Walk Away from Love sold over 1 million copies and earned a gold disc from the RIAA in February 1976. David Ruffin's solo career featured a range of notable recordings beyond his early hits. Among his significant tracks were I Lost Everything I've Ever Loved, the gospel-tinged I'm So Glad I Fell for You, and the socially conscious Blood Donors Needed, Give All You Can. He also released Common Man, which was later sampled on Jay-Z's 2001 song Never Change and No Matter Where. Other key recordings included Who I Am, Statue of a Fool, and cover versions of the Jackson 5's I Want You Back and Brooke Benton's Rainy Night in Georgia, both recorded for a shelved 1970 album. Additionally, he recorded I Miss You with Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, featuring Eddie Kendricks. After leaving Motown in 1977, Ruffin signed with Warner Brothers Records, where he released the albums So Soon We Change and Gentleman Ruffin. Later, he signed with RCA Records, where he was accompanied by former Temptations colleague Eddie Kendricks, who had also faced his own challenges with the group. Collaborations. In 1982, David Ruffin and Eddie Kendricks rejoined The Temptations for the recording of their album Reunion and a corresponding tour. The album featured the R&B hit Standing on the Top, which included a collaboration with Rick James. Despite the promising start, the reunion tour was short-lived due to Ruffin's escalating cocaine addiction, which led him to miss several shows and resulted in significant fines for the group. By Christmas 1982, Otis Williams made the decision to fire Ruffin and Kendricks, whose voice had been weakened by heavy smoking, from the group for the second and final time. In 1985, Ruffin and Kendrick, who at this point had dropped the S from his last name, began performing together as a duo. That year, they teamed up with Hall & Oates for the reopening of the Apollo Theater in New York, and their performance was released as a live album and single. The four singers also performed a medley of Temptations hits at Live Aid on July 13, 1985. A live medley of The Way You Do the Things You Do and My Girl, recorded by Hall & Oates, featuring Ruffin and Kendricks, reached number 20 on the Billboard Hot 100, number 12 on the Adult Contemporary chart, and number 40 on the R&B chart. This single earned Ruffin his first and only Grammy nomination. However, tensions emerged between the duo and Hall & Oates, reportedly due to Daryl Hall's objections to Ruffin's ongoing drug issues. Despite these challenges, John Oates wrote a minor hit single for Ruffin and Kendricks, but the partnership eventually fell apart. In 1989, Ruffin, Kendricks, and Dennis Edwards were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as members of The Temptations. They then began touring and recording as Ruffin, Kendrick, Edwards, former leads of The Temptations. Their month-long tour of England in 1991 was a notable success, grossing nearly $300,000. At the time of his death, Ruffin was preparing for a European tour and had recently finished recording the single Hurt the One You Love for Motor City Records, Relationships, Children, and Domestic Abuse. David Ruffin was married twice during his lifetime. His first marriage was to Sandra Barnes in 1961, with whom he had 3 daughters, Cheryl, Nedra, and Kimberly. After his marriage to Barnes ended, Ruffin had a son with his long-term girlfriend Jenna Sapia, whom he met in 1964. Their son was originally named David E. Sapia, but Ruffin later changed his name to David Eli Ruffin Jr. Ruffin Sapia, and their son lived together for several years. In 1976, Ruffin married Joy Hamilton. After Ruffin's death, Sapia chose to add Ruffin to her last name as a tribute to their relationship and to maintain continuity with their son. In 2003, Sapia Ruffin published a memoir titled A Memoir, David Ruffin, My Temptation, which details Ruffin's infidelity and abusive behavior. In 1966, Ruffin began a tumultuous relationship with Tammy Terrell after she joined the Motortown Revue, opening for The Temptations. Their relationship was marked by significant difficulties. Ruffin surprised Terrell with a marriage proposal, but she later discovered that he was already married. As his drug abuse worsened, Ruffin became increasingly violent toward Terrell. The relationship ended in 1967 after Ruffin hit Terrell in the head with his motorcycle helmet. Terrell, who had suffered from migraines since childhood, later attributed her worsening condition to the emotional stress from their relationship. She passed away from a brain tumor in 1970. At the time of his death in 1991, Ruffin was living in Philadelphia with his girlfriend Diane Showers, whom he had met when she was a 14-year-old fan. Legacy. David Ruffin garnered significant admiration from fellow artists for his powerful and distinctive voice. Martha Reeves of Martha and the Vandellas, a close friend and colleague, praised Ruffin's vocal abilities, stating, "Nobody could sing like David Ruffin." Marvin Gaye, a contemporary and label mate, was particularly struck by the raw power and intensity of Ruffin's voice. Gaye noted, "Ruffin's work made me remember that when a lot of women listen to music, they want to feel the power of a real man." Daryl Hall described Ruffin's voice as having a glorious anguish, a quality that resonated deeply with listeners on multiple emotional levels. Ruffin himself was somewhat ambivalent about his vocal style, saying, "I don't know what kind of voice I have, I really don't. It's just about the feeling I get for the song." Renowned musician Rod Stewart also expressed profound admiration for Ruffin's work. Stewart was particularly moved by the song "I Wish It Would Rain," stating that it jumped out of the speakers and ravished my soul. This admiration extended into a personal friendship, with Stewart comparing the impact of Ruffin's voice to a foghorn on the Queen Mary. David Ruffin's legacy has been honored in several significant ways in recent years. In 2005, it was noted that the cover art of Ruffin's final album, Gentleman, inspired the artwork for rapper Wiz Khalifa's 2013 mixtape, Kush and Orange Juice. Ruffin's contributions to music were formally recognized with dual inductions into the Rhythm and Blues Music Hall of Fame at Cleveland State University in 2013, acknowledging his impact both as a solo artist and as a member of the Temptations. Additionally, in June 2019, he was inducted into the Mississippi Musicians Hall of Fame. The city of Detroit paid tribute to Ruffin by designating a section of Parkside Avenue near his former residence at 1738 Parkside as David Ruffin Avenue. The unveiling ceremony, organized by Lamont Robinson, founder of the National Rhythm and Blues Hall of Fame, was attended by Ruffin's family and friends, including Martha Reeves and Mary Wilson. Meridian, Mississippi, also honored Ruffin's memory on October 26, 2019, by naming a section of 8th Street near the Temple Theater as David Ruffin Boulevard. Although Ruffin was born in the nearby rural community of Why Not, he considered Meridian his home. The celebration featured a parade led by Jackson State University's Sonic Boom of the South Marching Band. The event, presented by Lamont Robinson and Ruffin's son-in-law, included the unveiling of Ruffin's star on Mississippi's Arts, plus Entertainment Experience's Walk of Fame, in early November 2019. In 1998, NBC aired The Temptations, a 4-hour miniseries that dramatized the career of the iconic Motown group. The role of David Ruffin was portrayed by actor Leon Robinson, whose performance was widely acclaimed. However, Ruffin's family was dissatisfied with the depiction of him in the series. They filed a lawsuit against the show's producers and Otis Williams, whose memoir had served as the source material for the miniseries. The lawsuit was ultimately dismissed in favor of the defendants, with Williams later stating that he had limited control over how the material was presented. David Ruffin's influence extended into the realm of contemporary music as well. In 2013, rapper Machine Gun Kelly referenced Ruffin in his song See My Tears, using Ruffin's name metaphorically to express resilience in the face of adversity. Fought every temptation I guess I'm David Ruffin, huh? Similarly, in 2019, rapper Lil Durk mentioned David Ruffin in his track, titled David Ruffin, from the mixtape Love Songs for the Streets 2. The lyrics use Ruffin's name metaphorically, relating to a person who faces legal challenges and chooses not to cooperate with law enforcement. Renowned for his raw, emotive tenor vocals, David Ruffin is celebrated as one of the 100 greatest singers of all time by Rolling Stone magazine, a distinction he received in both 2008 and 2023. His remarkable contributions to music were officially recognized with his induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1989, honoring his outstanding work with the Temptations. Despite the tumultuous and tragic aspects of his life, including his untimely death due to struggles with addiction and personal choices, Ruffin's legacy endures. His influence on the music industry remains profound, a testament to his exceptional vocal talent and the indelible mark he left on the world of music. His voice continues to resonate across generations, celebrating the emotional depth and power he brought to his performances. We hope this exploration of his life has given you a deeper understanding of his impact and the circumstances surrounding his passing. What aspect of his life or career do you find most intriguing? Share your reflections in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of David Ruffin, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content about the untold stories behind music legends.